Okay, now we're on to installation of sprinkler systems. First step is surveying. The first thing we always need to know is where is the property, how big is the property, what's the topography of the property, how are we going to deal with that property as far as going out there and laying out main lines, laterals, where the filter station's going if that's appropriate, where are the surface ditches going to be, where are the power lines, where are the roads, all the other interferences like buildings that might occur out in the field. So for installation, the first thing we got to be able to do is go out there and have a real feel for the lay of the land. Then when it comes to placing things like the pivot points for center pivots, we're obviously going to have to survey those in so that they sit exactly where we want that thing to be rotating. We don't want it to come around to the edge of the field and walk into the neighbors, or walk into the road, or hit a power line, or run into the barn. Okay? We also have to be able to shoot in main lines with a transit and or a level, especially when we're trying to run a main line to grade. If we're trying to do it to grade, we're going to have to shoot levels on it. If we simply just need to shoot main lines to be absolutely perpendicular to sides of a field and parallel to other sides of a field, we need a transit to do that kind of work. And if we're running wheel lines off of a main line, we need that main line to be as straight as possible. And then we need to have those wheel lines running as perpendicular as possible to that main line. So a transit is our friend when we do that. So there are times when a little bit of surveying is going to be mandatory, oftentimes just to find the property boundaries. We may have to have a professional surveyor come in and actually find the property corners to work off of so that we know we're staying inside the property of the owner of the person that's putting in the sprinkler system. Now, I wouldn't tackle that task myself unless I knew right exactly where the corners were. If the hubs are still sitting there, then it's not a problem. Oftentimes we can go down here into the city and you can find the property corners out on the sidewalks. They'll be marked. If we're doing a residential lawn, oftentimes we can find the markers. In the backs, the common convention in this part of the country is they drive a rebar stake into the ground and oftentimes put a cap on it. Generally in this town they put a yellow cap on it. And so you can go back in the back corner of a new development and find the corners pretty quick. Might have to dig around a little bit to find it because sometimes they get buried during construction when they're building the house. But if you have a real good idea of where it is, you can find that driven rebar and know exactly where the corners are. Also on yards, when you're looking at the sidewalks, people in this state are required, in this city, for example, to pour the sidewalk in front of their property. Well, they're not going to pour part of the neighbors. They go right to their property line, and that's where the sidewalk stops. Both sides, you know, boom, that's the end of the property. So wherever there's a change in the sidewalk pour, you know that that's going to probably be the property corners for the front corners of that piece of property. And there should be a rebar driven in those. Sometimes there will be a metal hub that they have actually put into the cement. So the little hub is sitting there in the cement, right on the surface. And that's the survey corner. So there's lots of little things to look for out there that can help you find the locations of the actual property corners when you're working in the field. And when push comes to shove, if you're uncertain, you need to bring in a surveyor, a licensed surveyor. Let them be the fall guy if you put the piece of equipment in the wrong spot. Then they're liable instead of you if there's a mistake and you're all of a sudden have your piece of equipment riding into the neighbor's, or you're laying pipe in the neighbor's property and they have you come out and tear it out. Mainly